Captain Jake Morrison sat in the small interview room aboard the human colony ship New Horizon. The walls were painted a calm blue color, and soft lights made everything look peaceful. He wore his best uniform, the dark blue one with gold buttons. That made him look professional. His hands rested on the metal table in front of him, and he tried to keep his breathing steady. 3 months had passed since humans first met the aliens from the Zephyrian Alliance. It was the biggest moment in human history. People back on Earth were excited and scared at the same time. The aliens seemed friendly enough, with their tall bodies and purple skin. They had big eyes that looked almost human, but their voices sounded like music when they talked. Today was supposed to be a good day. Jake was going to do a live interview that would be broadcast across the galaxy. Millions of beings from different planets would watch. The plan was simple. Show everyone that humans and aliens could be friends. Show them that humans were peaceful and wanted to work together. Jake looked at the camera in front of him. It was bigger than human cameras and had strange symbols glowing on its side. The alien technology still amazed him, even after months of seeing it every day. Through the big window next to him, he could see stars moving slowly past as the ship traveled through space. Dr. Lisa Park was in the room next door watching on a screen. She was Jake's partner in life and work. Lisa was smart, maybe the smartest person Jake had ever met. She studied alien life and how different beings lived together. Her long brown hair was pulled back and she wore her white scientist coat. Jake could see her through the glass wall, and she gave him a small smile. The door opened and Vexathera walked in. She was the reporter from the Zephyrian News Network. Her purple skin seemed to shine under the lights, and her 3 eyes looked at Jake with interest. She was tall, much taller than Jake, and her arms were longer than human arms. When she spoke, her voice had that musical sound that all Zephyrians had. "Captain Morrison," she said, sitting down across from him. "Are you ready to begin?" Jake nodded. "Yes, I am. Thank you for this chance to talk to everyone." The camera started recording. A small red light came on, which meant beings across the galaxy were now watching them live. Jake had done interviews before, but never like this. Never with so many different types of beings watching. "Good evening, beings of the Alliance," Vexathera said to the camera. "I am speaking with Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship New Horizon." "Captain, humans are new to our galaxy. Tell us about your people." Jake smiled. This was the easy part. Humans come from a planet called Earth. We are explorers and dreamers. We love to learn new things and meet new friends. We believe in working together and helping each other. We are excited to be part of this big galactic family." "How interesting," Vexathera said. Her 3 eyes seemed to study Jake carefully. "You speak of working together. Yet I understand you have a female companion aboard this ship. Tell us about this relationship." Jake was not sure why she was asking, but he answered, "Yes, Dr. Lisa Park is my partner. She is a brilliant scientist who studies how different beings live together. She is here because she is the best at what she does. We work together and we care about each other." Vexathera's eyes seemed to glow brighter. "How convenient for you, Captain. You have this female doing scientific work while you get the credit as the ship's leader. Is this not how humans control their females?" Jake felt his stomach drop. This was not what they had planned to talk about. He could see Lisa in the next room, and her face looked surprised too. Jake took a deep breath. He had to be careful with his words because millions of beings were watching. "I think there might be some confusion," Jake said, keeping his voice calm. "Lisa is not controlled by anyone. She chose to be here. She chose her work. We make decisions together as equals." "Equals?" Vexathera laughed, but it did not sound friendly. "Come now, Captain. You are the leader of this ship. You speak for your people." She stands in the background. "How is this equal?" Jake could feel his face getting warm, but he forced himself to stay calm. He thought about Lisa, about how smart she was, about how she had taught him so much about alien cultures. He thought about how they made decisions together, how they supported each other. "Dr. Park is not in the background," Jake said clearly. "She is one of the most important people on this ship. She leads our science team. She speaks for herself. I don't control her any more than she controls me. We are partners. Partners, Vexthera repeated like the word tasted bad. Yet you are the one sitting here, speaking to the galaxy. Where is her voice? Jake looked directly into the camera. Her voice is her own, just like mine is my own. In human relationships, we don't own each other. We choose to be together. We respect each other. We help each other grow and become better. How? Primitive, Vexthera said. To pretend that there is no hierarchy, no order. Every civilized species understands that someone must lead and others must follow. You humans seem to live in chaos. Jake shook his head. We don't live in chaos. We live in freedom. There is a difference. Lisa could leave tomorrow if she wanted to. She could take another job, go to another planet, make different choices. She stays because she wants to stay. That makes our bond stronger, not weaker. The alien reporter looked confused. You mean she could just leave? And you would not stop her? Of course not, Jake said. Love is not about control. Leadership is not about control either. It's about service. I serve my crew, just like they serve our mission. We all choose to be here. Vexthera was quiet for a moment. Jake could see beings in the background talking quickly to each other. Something about his words had surprised them. This is unusual, Vexthera finally said. Maybe, Jake replied, but it works for us. It makes us stronger. The interview continued, but Jake could tell something had changed. His simple words about choice and respect had touched something. He did not know it yet, but across the galaxy, beings were listening with new interest. The idea of choice, of freedom, was something many had never heard before. When the interview ended, Jake walked to the next room where Lisa was waiting. You did good, she said, hugging him. I hope so, Jake replied. I think we might have started something. He was right. Across the galaxy, the word choice was being whispered in many different languages. Dr. Lisa Park stood in front of the mirror in her small room aboard the New Horizon. She brushed her brown hair and put on her best white coat. Today she would speak to the galaxy, just like Jake had done 3 days ago. But things were different now. The interview with Jake had spread across the galaxy faster than anyone expected. Alien news stations were showing it over and over again. People on different planets were talking about it. The word choice was being translated into hundreds of alien languages. Some beings had never heard this word before. Lisa walked down the hall to the same interview room where Jake had sat. The walls still looked calm and blue, but she felt nervous. Through the big windows, she could see 3 alien ships following them now. The Zephyrian Alliance was watching the humans more closely. Communications officer Amy Chen met Lisa at the door. Amy was young, maybe 25, with short black hair and bright eyes. She looked worried. Dr. Park, Amy said quietly, we're getting strange messages from all over the galaxy. Beings are asking questions about what Captain Morrison said. Some sound excited, others sound scared. Lisa nodded. What kind of questions? They want to know more about choice, about partnerships, about freedom. Amy showed Lisa a tablet with messages on it. Look at this one. It's from a being called Quindar on the planet Zephyr Prime. He says he never knew he could choose his own work. Lisa read the message. It was written in simple words like someone learning a new language. My name is Quindar. I watch your captain speak about choice. In my world, fathers choose work for sons. Mothers choose partners for daughters. No one asks what we want. Is it true humans choose for themselves? There were hundreds of messages like this. Beings from planets Lisa had never heard of were asking the same thing. Can we really choose? Can we really be free? The Alliance officials are not happy, Amy continued. They're calling it dangerous thinking. They say choice leads to chaos. Lisa thought about this as she walked into the interview room. The same alien camera was there with its glowing symbols. But this time Vexthera was not alone. 2 other Zephyrian officials sat beside her. They wore dark robes and looked serious. Dr. Park, Vexthera said as Lisa sat down. Thank you for agreeing to this follow-up interview. "Thank you for having me," Lisa replied. She tried to keep her voice steady. The red light came on. Beings across the galaxy were watching again. "Dr. Park," Vexthera began, "your captain made some unusual claims about human relationships. You are the female he spoke about. Tell us the truth. Are you really free to make your own choices?" Lisa looked directly into the camera. "Yes, I am. Every day I wake up and choose to be here. I choose to do my work. I choose to be with Jake. No one forces me." One of the officials leaned forward. "But surely your male leaders tell you what to study, what to think." Lisa shook her head. "No. I study what interests me. I think my own thoughts. Jake and I talk about things and make decisions together, but my mind is my own." "This seems impossible," the official said. "How can a society function without clear hierarchy, without leaders telling followers what to do?" Lisa smiled a little. "We do have leaders, but they lead by example, not by force. Jake is the captain because he's good at making difficult decisions and keeping people safe. But if I disagreed with him about something important, I could speak up. Everyone could." "And what would happen then?" Vexithara asked. "We would talk about it. We would listen to each other. We would find the best solution together." Lisa paused. "That's how we solve problems. By using everyone's ideas, not just one person's." The second official looked confused. "But what if people disagree? What if they want different things?" "Then we discuss it," Lisa said. "We look at facts. We consider what's best for everyone. Sometimes we vote, sometimes we compromise. But no one gets to control another person's thoughts or choices." She could see the officials looking at each other with worry. These ideas were clearly new to them. "Let me give you an example," Lisa continued. "Before I came on this mission, I had other job offers. Good jobs on Earth and on Mars colonies. I could have chosen any of them. I chose this one because I wanted to meet new beings and learn about different cultures. Jake didn't make this choice for me. My parents didn't make it for me. I made it because it's what I wanted to do with my life." "Your parents," Vexthara said quickly, "surely they guided your decisions?" "They gave me advice when I asked for it. They supported my education. But they never told me I had to be a scientist, or that I had to marry Jake, or that I had to come on this mission. They wanted me to be happy and to choose my own path." The room was quiet for a moment. Lisa could almost feel the shock from the alien officials. "This is very different from how our societies work," one official finally said. "Maybe," Lisa replied, "but it works for us. When people are free to choose, they work harder. They're happier. They create new ideas. They solve problems better." "But how do you maintain order?" Vexithara asked. "We have laws that protect everyone's freedom," Lisa explained. "You can't hurt other people. You can't take their property. You can't force them to do things they don't want to do. But within those limits, you can live how you want to live." After the interview, Lisa walked back to her laboratory. Chief Engineer Mike Torres was waiting for her. Mike was a big man with strong hands and a kind face. He looked excited. "Dr. Park," Mike said, "you need to see this. The ship's communication systems are being flooded with messages. Beings from hundreds of planets are asking for more information about human society." Lisa looked at the screens in her lab. Messages were coming in so fast the computers could barely keep up. They were in dozens of different alien languages, but the translation programs were working overtime. "We want to know more about choice. Can we really live without masters? How do we start choosing for ourselves? Is freedom really possible?" Lisa felt a mix of excitement and worry. These messages were from beings who had lived their whole lives being told what to do, who to marry, what to believe. The idea that they could choose for themselves was revolutionary, but she also knew this was dangerous. The Alliance officials had looked scared during the interview. Scared people often did dangerous things. Jake appeared in the doorway. "Lisa, we need to talk. Alliance ships are surrounding us. They're demanding we stop broadcasting these interviews." Lisa looked at the messages still flooding in. Beings across the galaxy were waking up to the idea of freedom, but the powers that controlled them were getting ready to fight back. "What do we do?" she asked. Jake put his hand on her shoulder. "We keep telling the truth. These beings deserve to know they have choices." Outside the window, more Alliance ships appeared. The battle for freedom was about to begin. High Counselor Crystal stood in the dark meeting room on the planet Zephyr Prime. His 3 eyes glowed red with anger as he watched the recordings of the human interviews for the 3rd time. Around the long metal table sat 12 other Alliance leaders from different planets. Their faces showed worry and fear. "This is worse than we thought," Crystal said in his deep, musical voice. "These humans are spreading poison across our galaxy. Their ideas about choice and freedom are making our people ask dangerous questions." A leader with green skin and 4 arms raised one hand. "My planet has received over 10,000 messages asking about human society. Workers are refusing to follow orders. They say they want to choose their own jobs." Another leader, this one, tall and thin with silver skin, spoke up. "It's the same everywhere. Young beings are questioning their elders. They're asking why they can't pick their own partners or choose where to live. Some are even leaving their assigned workstations." Crystal slammed his large hand on the table. "This cannot continue. For thousands of years we have maintained order through proper hierarchy. Everyone knows their place. Everyone follows the rules. Now these humans come with their chaos and call it freedom." "What do we do?" asked the green-skinned leader. Crystal's eyes grew brighter. "We show the galaxy what humans really are. We prove they are violent, dangerous, and not to be trusted. Once beings see their true nature, they will stop listening to their lies." Meanwhile, aboard the New Horizon, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command room with his senior officers. Chief Engineer Mike Torres looked tired. His usually neat hair was messy, and his work clothes had grease stains. Communications Officer Amy Chen had dark circles under her eyes from staying up all night reading messages from across the galaxy. "Captain," Mike said, "something strange is happening with our supply deliveries. 3 Alliance stations have refused to trade with us. They say our credits are no good anymore." Amy looked at her tablet screen. "And I'm getting reports from human settlements on border planets. Alliance officials are asking lots of questions about our military strength and our weapons." Jake felt worry growing in his stomach. "What kind of questions?" "They want to know how many ships we have, what kind of weapons they carry, how many soldiers we can field." Amy scrolled through her messages. "It's like they're planning something." Dr. Lisa Park entered the room carrying a large stack of papers. Her face looked serious but excited at the same time. "Jake, you need to see this," she said, putting the papers on the table. "I've been studying the social structures of all the Alliance species. Every single one of them has lived under authoritarian control for hundreds or even thousands of years." Jake picked up one of the papers. It had charts and graphs showing different alien societies. "What does this mean?" "It means they've never experienced real freedom," Lisa explained. "Look at this. On the planet Draco 7, children are assigned their life jobs when they turn 10 years old. On Vega Minor, the government chooses who marries whom. On Centauri, Beta, people can't even choose what food to eat. It's all decided by food committees." Mike whistled low. "No wonder our ideas scare them." "It's worse than that," Lisa continued. "Their entire power structure depends on control. If beings start thinking they can choose for themselves, the whole system falls apart." Jake understood now. "They see us as a threat to their way of life." Amy's tablet beeped with an urgent message. She read it quickly, and her face went pale. "Captain, we have a problem. 3 human cargo ships were just attacked near the outer rim. The Alliance is saying it was pirates, but the survivors report the attackers used Alliance weapons." Before Jake could respond, the ship's alarm system started ringing. Red lights flashed throughout the command room. "Captain," came the voice from the bridge. 5 Alliance warships just dropped out of hyperspace. They're surrounding us." Jake and his team hurried to the main bridge. Through the big front window they could see the Alliance ships. They were much larger than the New Horizon, with dark metal hulls and weapon ports that glowed with energy. The communication system crackled to life. "Human vessel New Horizon. This is Admiral Vex Cole of the Alliance Defense Force. You are ordered to surrender your ship for inspection." Jake sat in the captain's chair and pressed the communication button. "Admiral, This is Captain Morrison. We are on a peaceful mission. What is the reason for this inspection? We have received reports that your ship carries illegal weapons and propaganda materials. You will submit to boarding or face the consequences. Jake looked at Mike and Lisa. They both shook their heads. The New Horizon carried no weapons except basic defensive systems. The only propaganda was their recorded interviews. Admiral, Jake said calmly, we invite you to inspect our ship. We have nothing to hide, but we are in neutral space. By what authority do you make this demand? There was silence for a moment. Then the Admiral's voice came back, harder and angrier. By the authority of galactic peace and security. These ideas you spread are dangerous. They cause chaos and disorder. Amy was monitoring other communication channels. She turned to Jake with wide eyes. Captain, I'm picking up messages from Alliance planets. There are protests happening. Beings are demanding the right to choose their own leaders. On the planet Zephyr Prime, a young Zephyrian named Quindar stood in the main square with 50 other beings. They held signs written in the old language, but the words were new. We choose freedom and give us choice. Zephyrian police surrounded them, but they didn't move. For the first time in their lives, these beings were making their own decision about what to do and where to stand. Similar scenes were happening on dozens of planets across the Alliance. The human ideas about choice and freedom were spreading, faster than anyone had expected. Back aboard the New Horizon, the Alliance ships were moving closer. Jake could see their weapon systems powering up. Captain, Mike said quietly, our engines are ready. We could try to run. Jake thought about all the messages they had received from beings asking about freedom. He thought about Quindar and others, like him, who were standing up for the first time. If the New Horizon ran away now, those beings might lose hope. No, Jake said. We stand our ground. These people deserve to hear the truth about freedom. Lisa put her hand on his shoulder. Whatever happens, we did the right thing. The Alliance ships moved into attack formation. Across the galaxy, protests were growing larger. The ideas that had started with a simple interview about human relationships were now threatening to change everything. High Counselor Crixtal watched the protests on his screens and made his decision. Send the order to all fleet commanders. Any ship found spreading human propaganda is to be destroyed. Any planet that harbors human sympathizers will face consequences. This ends now. But it was already too late. The idea of choice, once planted, was impossible to destroy. The battle for the galaxy's freedom was about to begin. Quindar crouched behind a pile of broken concrete in the main square of Zephyr Prime. His purple skin was covered with dust, and one of his 3 eyes was swollen shut from where an Alliance police officer had hit him. Around him, 30 other beings hid behind whatever cover they could find. The protest had started peacefully that morning. Quindar and his friends had simply stood in the square holding their signs about freedom and choice. But when more beings joined them, and then more, the Alliance police had arrived with weapons. Quindar, whispered his friend Zara, a female Zephyrian with bright blue markings on her face. Maybe we should go home. This is getting dangerous. Quindar shook his head. The humans said we have the right to choose. I choose to stay here. I choose to speak for freedom. Across the square, Alliance soldiers were setting up barriers. Their leader, Captain Vexmore, spoke through a loudspeaker. Citizens, return to your homes immediately. These illegal gatherings are over. But more beings kept coming. Not just Zephyrians, but other species too. Green-skinned Drakons from the factory districts, Silver Centaurians from the science centers, even some beings Quindar had never seen before. They came carrying their own signs, their own dreams of freedom. On the planet Draco 7, similar scenes were playing out. Young Drakons who had been assigned to work in the dark mines were refusing to report for duty. They gathered in groups, talking about the human ideas they had heard. Some had never spoken their own thoughts out loud before. Meanwhile, in deep space, the New Horizon faced the 5 Alliance warships. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, watching the enemy ships move into attack positions. Their weapon systems glowed with deadly energy. Captain, Communications Officer Amy Chen called out, I'm receiving a transmission from the planet Vega Minor. Listen to this. A voice came through the speakers, speaking in broken but understandable human language. Human friends, this is Koltar from Vega Minor. We hear your words about choice. We try to choose our own leaders today. Alliance soldiers come to stop us, but we not give up. Thank you for showing us freedom is possible. Similar messages were coming from dozens of planets. Beings everywhere were standing up for the first time in their lives. Dr. Lisa Park was in her laboratory, working frantically at her computer. She had been secretly sending information to rebel groups across the galaxy. Not weapons or military plans, but something much more powerful. Human books about democracy, philosophy, and social science. Lisa, Chief Engineer Mike Torres said, as he entered the lab, "What are you doing?" "I'm sharing everything I can," Lisa replied, typing quickly.
History books about how humans fought for freedom. Guides on how to organize peaceful protests. Instructions on how to set up fair elections. She looked up at Mike. These beings have lived under control for so long, they don't even know how
to be free. But they're learning fast. Mike looked at her computer screen. It showed a map of the galaxy with thousands of small dots of light. Each dot represented a place where beings were reading human texts about freedom. The Alliance won't. Like this, Mike said. I know, Lisa replied, but these people deserve the truth. On the bridge, Admiral Vexcol's voice crackled through the communication system again. Captain Morrison, you have 5 minutes to surrender your ship. After that, we will open fire. Jake looked at his crew. Amy was still monitoring messages from across the galaxy. The ship's pilot, Lieutenant Dan Foster, sat ready at the controls. Everyone looked scared but determined. Amy, Jake said, open a channel to all Alliance ships. Channel open, Captain. Jake spoke clearly into the microphone. Admiral Vexcol, we are not your enemy. We came here in peace. We shared our ideas about freedom because we believe all beings deserve the right to choose their own lives. If you attack us, you're not fighting humans, you're fighting the idea of freedom itself. Your ideas are poison, the Admiral replied. They destroy order. They create chaos. No, Jake said firmly. Our ideas create hope. As if to prove his point, Amy's console lit up with new messages. Captain, protests are starting on 12 more planets. The beings are demanding the right to vote for their own leaders. On Zephyr Prime, Quindar watched as hundreds more beings entered the square. Alliance soldiers were there too, but they looked confused. Some were even putting down their weapons. Citizens, Captain Vexmore announced, disperse immediately or face arrest. An old Zephyrian female stepped forward. Her name was Elder Nixara, and she had lived for over 200 years under Alliance rule. Captain, she said in a voice that carried across the square, I have obeyed orders my entire life. My father chose my work. The government chose my husband. Officials chose where I could live and what I could eat. Today, for the first time, I choose to stand here and speak for myself. The crowd cheered. Even some of the soldiers looked moved by her words. Captain Vexmore raised his weapon, but one of his own soldiers put a hand on his arm. Sir, the soldier said, she's just an old woman speaking her mind. What harm can that do? It can destroy everything, Vexmore replied, but his voice lacked conviction. Back on the New Horizon, the Alliance ships were moving closer. Jake could see their missile ports opening. Captain, Lieutenant Foster said, incoming message from Earth Command. Jake listened to the message through his earpiece. It was from Admiral Sarah Martinez, head of Earth's Space Fleet. Jake, we're sending reinforcements, but they won't arrive for 6 hours. Hold your position if you can, the whole galaxy is watching. Jake realized she was right. This wasn't just about one ship anymore. Beings across the galaxy were looking to the New Horizon as a symbol of hope and freedom. Amy, he said, broadcast this on all frequencies, make sure everyone can hear. Jake stood up and faced the camera Amy had quickly set up. My name is Captain Jake Morrison. Right now, Alliance warships are preparing to attack my ship because we shared ideas about freedom and choice. They want to silence us because they're afraid of what happens when beings think for themselves. He paused, looking directly into the camera. But it's too late for that. The idea of freedom can't be destroyed by weapons. It lives in the hearts of every being who wants to choose their own path. Today, across this galaxy, millions of beings are standing up and saying, "We choose freedom." We stand with them. Planets throughout the Alliance, beings watched Jake's broadcast. In the square on Zephyr Prime, Quindar felt tears in his eyes. On Draco 7, young miners raised their fists in solidarity. On Vega Minor, Koltar translated Jake's words for those who didn't speak human language. The Alliance ships powered, their weapons to full charge. But across the galaxy, the revolution had already begun. The humans had given the oppressed beings something more powerful than any weapon: hope. The first missile streaked through space toward the New Horizon. Captain Jake Morrison gripped his chair as the ship shook from the explosion nearby. Sparks flew from damaged control panels, and the lights flickered. "Shields at 60%, called out Lieutenant Dan Foster from the pilot's seat. His hands moved quickly over the controls, trying to keep the ship stable. "Return fire," Jake ordered, though his heart was heavy. He had hoped to avoid violence, but the Alliance had made the choice for him. The New Horizon's defensive weapons fired back at the nearest Alliance ship. The shots hit their target, causing bright flashes against the enemy's shields. But 5 ships against 1 was not a fair fight. On the planet Zephyr Prime, Quindar watched the space battle on a large screen in the main square. Thousands of beings had gathered now, all watching their human friends fight for survival. When the Alliance ships fired their first shots, angry shouts rose from the crowd. "They're attacking peaceful beings," shouted Elder Nixara. The humans never threatened anyone. They only shared ideas. Captain Vexmore and his soldiers stood at the edge of the square, but they no longer looked confident. Some soldiers had even removed their helmets and were listening to the crowd. "Sir," one soldier said to Captain Vexmore, "maybe the humans are right. Maybe beings should be free to choose." Captain Vexmore turned to face his soldier. "You're talking about treason." "No, sir," the soldier replied. "I'm talking about freedom." More soldiers began to nod in agreement. Captain Vexmore realized he was losing control of his own troops. Meanwhile, on dozens of other planets, similar scenes were playing out. On Draco 7, the young miners had taken control of their work sites. They weren't destroying anything or hurting anyone. They were simply refusing to work until they could choose their own jobs. On Vega Minor, Koltar had organized a peaceful march to the government buildings. Thousands of beings walked together, carrying signs written in their own language that said, "We choose freedom," and "Give us democracy." Back in space, the New Horizon was taking heavy damage. Another missile had hit their rear section, and Chief Engineer Mike Torres was working frantically to keep the engines running. "Jake," Mike called over the communication system, "I don't know how much longer we can hold together. These Alliance ships have better weapons than us." Dr. Lisa Park was still in her laboratory, but now she was working on something different. She had connected her computer to the ship's main communication array and was broadcasting continuously to every planet in the galaxy. "This is Dr. Lisa Park aboard the New Horizon," she said into her microphone. "Right now, Alliance warships are attacking us because we believe in freedom. But this isn't really about us. It's about every being in this galaxy who wants the right to choose their own life." Her words were being translated into hundreds of languages and broadcast to billions of beings. On every Alliance planet, beings heard her voice and felt courage growing in their hearts. "We're going to keep fighting," Lisa continued, "not with weapons, but with ideas. We believe that every being has the right to think their own thoughts, make their own choices, and live their own life. No government should control what you believe or who you love or what work you do." Another explosion rocked the New Horizon. The lights went out for a moment before emergency power kicked in. On Zephyr Prime, Quindar felt anger burning in his chest as he watched his human friends under attack. He stood up on a piece of broken concrete so everyone in the square could see him. "Friends," he shouted, "the humans are dying for us. They're giving their lives so we can be free. What are we going to do about it?" The crowd roared back, "Fight for freedom." "Not with weapons," Quindar said quickly. "With our voices, with our unity. If all of us refuse to obey, what can they do?" If every being on every planet stands up at the same time, they can't stop us all. Elder Nixara stepped forward. The young one is right. I have lived 200 years under their control. Today I say no more. She walked toward Captain Vexmore and his soldiers. Captain, I'm going to the government building to demand new leaders. Leaders we choose ourselves. Will you stop me? Captain Vexmore raised his weapon, but his hand was shaking. Stay back, Elder. I don't want to hurt you. Then don't, she said simply, and kept walking. One by one, other beings in the crowd began to follow her. They walked slowly, peacefully, but with determination. Captain Vexmore and his soldiers were faced with a choice: shoot hundreds of unarmed beings or let them pass. Most of the soldiers lowered their weapons. A few even joined the march. Similar scenes were happening across the galaxy. On planet after planet, beings were standing up and walking toward their government buildings, demanding the right to choose their own leaders. In space, the New Horizon was barely holding together. 2 of their defensive weapons had been destroyed, and fires were burning in several sections of the ship. Captain, Amy Chen called out, I'm receiving a priority message from Admiral Vexcol. Put it through, Jake said. The Alliance Admiral's voice filled the bridge. Captain Morrison, surrender now and I will allow your crew to live. Continue fighting and you all die. Jake looked around at his crew. They were scared, injured, but still determined. Lieutenant Foster had a cut on his forehead from flying debris. Amy's left arm was hanging at a strange angle, probably broken. Mike's uniform was torn and burned from fighting the fires. What do you say? Jake asked them. We keep fighting, Amy said immediately. For freedom, Mike added. For all the beings counting on us, Lieutenant Foster finished. Jake smiled proudly at his crew. Admiral Vexcol, this is Captain Morrison. We don't surrender to tyrants. The Alliance ships prepared for their final attack. Their weapons glowed brighter than ever, ready to destroy the New Horizon completely. But then something unexpected happened. On the sensor screens, new ships began to appear. At first, just a few, then dozens, then hundreds. They were Alliance ships. But they weren't firing on the New Horizon. Captain, Amy said with wonder in her voice, I'm receiving messages from those ships. They're Alliance crews, but they're saying they refuse to fight for tyranny anymore. One voice came through clearly. This is Captain Mordak of the Alliance ship Thunderwing. We stand with the humans. We choose freedom. The 5 ships that had been attacking the New Horizon suddenly found themselves outnumbered 50-1. Admiral Vexcol's voice came through the communication system one last time, but now he sounded scared. All ships, this is mutiny. Return to your positions immediately. But the Alliance crews had made their choice. For the first time in their lives, they were choosing what they believed was right instead of just following orders. The revolution had reached even the Alliance military. The galaxy was changing, and there was no going back. 6 months later, Captain Jake Morrison stood in the Great Assembly Hall on the planet New Harmony. The building was huge, with a glass ceiling that showed the stars above. Representatives from over 300 planets sat in curved rows, all facing a central stage. Jake wore his best dress uniform, but he felt nervous. Today was the day they would sign the charter for the new Galactic Federation. It would replace the old alliance with something built on freedom and choice instead of control and fear. Dr. Lisa Park sat in the front row with the other charter writers. Her arm had healed from the space battle, but she still had a small scar on her forehead where debris had hit her. She smiled at Jake and gave him a thumbs up. The old alliance was gone. After that day in space, when Alliance ships had joined the humans instead of attacking them, the revolution had spread like wildfire. On planet after planet, beings had walked to their government buildings and demanded new leaders. Most of the old officials had given up without a fight when they realized their own soldiers wouldn't obey them anymore. High Counselor Krickstall had been one of the few who tried to keep fighting. But when even his own bodyguards refused to follow his orders, he had finally surrendered. He was now in prison, not for being evil, but for trying to control others against their will. Quindar walked onto the stage. He looked different now, more confident, standing straighter. He wore the simple blue robes of an elected representative from Zephyr Prime. His people had chosen him to speak for them in the new government. "Friends," Quindar said, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. 6 months ago, most of us had never heard the word choice. We lived our lives doing what others told us to do. We married who they said to marry. We worked where they said to work. We believed what they said to believe. The hall was quiet. Representatives from hundreds of different species listened carefully. Then the humans came, Quindar continued. They didn't come with weapons or threats. They came with something more powerful, an idea. The idea that every being has the right to choose their own path in life. Jake felt proud, but also humble. The humans hadn't meant to start a revolution. They had just been honest about how they lived. Today, Quindar said, we sign a charter that says no government can control what people think or believe. No leader can tell you who to marry or what job to do. Every being has the right to speak their mind, to choose their leaders, and to live in freedom. The representatives stood up and cheered. Jake could see beings wiping tears from their eyes, or whatever they had instead of eyes. Elder Nixara was there too, representing the older generation on Zephyr Prime. At over 200 years old, she was learning about freedom for the first time. "I never thought I would live to see this day," she had told Jake earlier. "To think that beings can choose their own leaders instead of just accepting whoever is born into power." Communications Officer Amy Chen, now promoted to commander, was working at the media center. The signing ceremony was being broadcast to every planet in the galaxy. Billions of beings were watching as their representatives created a new kind of government. "Captain Morrison," Amy said, "we're getting messages from Earth. The President sends her congratulations. She says humanity is proud to be part of this new federation." Chief Engineer Mike Torres had been put in charge of helping planets set up their new democratic systems. It was hard work. Many beings had never voted before and didn't understand how elections worked. But they were learning fast. The amazing thing, Mike had told Jake, is how quickly they figured it out. Once you give people the right to choose, they really want to make good choices. The ceremony continued with representatives from different planets taking turns to speak. A young Draken named Veltar talked about how miners on her planet now chose their own work schedules and safety rules. A silver-skinned Centaurian called Zoxwin explained how his people had elected their first democratic council. But the most moving speech came from Captain Mordak, the Alliance officer who had been first to switch sides during the space battle. He now wore the uniform of the new Federation Defense Force. "I spent 30 years following orders without question," he said. "I never asked if those orders were right or wrong. I just obeyed. When I saw the humans willing to die for the idea of freedom, I realized I had been living like a machine, not like a thinking being." He paused and looked around the hall. "The old Alliance taught us that following orders was the highest virtue. The new Federation teaches us that thinking for ourselves is what makes us truly alive." Finally, it was time for the signing. Lisa Park stepped onto the stage carrying the charter document. It was written on special paper that would last for thousands of years and translated into every language in the galaxy. "This charter," Lisa said, "promises that every being has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It promises that governments serve the people, not the other way around. And it promises that these rights can never be taken away, no matter what." One by one, representatives from each planet signed the document. Some used pens, others used special stamps or energy markers that their species preferred. Each signature represented millions of beings who were now free to choose their own destinies. When it was finished, Jake was invited to speak as a representative of Earth. "6 months ago," Jake said, "a reporter asked me about my relationship with Dr. Park. She thought it was strange that humans treat each other as equals. She couldn't understand how we could live without someone being in control." He looked out at the hundreds of different species in the audience. "Today I see the answer all around me. When beings are free to choose, they choose to work together. When they're free to think, they think of ways to help each other. When they're free to speak, they speak words of hope and kindness." Jake paused. remembering that first interview that had started everything. Freedom doesn't create chaos. Freedom creates the best in all of us. The ceremony ended with the lighting of the Federation flame, a symbolic fire that would burn on New Harmony to represent the light of freedom. As Jake watched the flame flicker to life, he thought about how a simple conversation about choice and respect had changed an entire galaxy. Later that evening, Jake and Lisa stood together on a balcony overlooking the celebration in the streets below. Beings from dozens of different planets were dancing, singing, and celebrating together. "Do you think it will last?" Lisa asked. "This freedom we've helped create?" Jake put his arm around her shoulders. "As long as beings remember that, freedom is something you have to choose every day. As long as they remember that it's worth fighting for." In the distance, ships from hundreds of worlds were preparing to return home, carrying with them the promise of democracy and the hope of freedom. The galaxy would never be the same. The revolution that started with a simple question about human relationships had become something much bigger, a declaration that every being in the universe deserved the right to choose their own path among the stars.